Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For this lesson, let's focus on that 2-5-1 progression, and let's try to add different substitutions and extensions to make it sound more advanced or more jazzy. Now, for those of you who don't understand what a 2-5-1 progression is, really simple. If we look at the C major scale, let's do this lesson in C major to keep it simple for all of us. If we look at the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and we add a triad to each of those notes, a diatonic triad. So all of the notes in the chords that we are about to form are make part of the C major scale. So they don't get out of the C major scale. No black keys. So C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and we're back to C. So we have the chords for each of the notes in the C major scale. Now, let's add a number to each of these chords. Instead of calling them by their name, let's just call them by a number. So we start on the 1, then the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, and then we're back to the 1. Now, the 2-5-1 progression is basically just playing the 2 chord, the 5 chord, and the 1 chord. In this case is a D minor, G major, and then a C major. So that's the 2-5-1 progression. We usually hear this at the end of a song. As you can see, it sort of goes from a tension to a release, or tension to a resolution. So tension, we're almost at home but not quite there, and then we resolve to the C major. Now let's try to figure out different extensions that we can use so that we don't play it the most simple or basic way, so that we don't stay stuck playing a D minor, G major, and C major. All right, so something really simple that we can do is substitute that D minor for an F major, and just by substituting that, we get a minor 7 type of chord quality. Then for G, all we have to do is play G on the bass, and my right hand, all it does is move that C down to a B. And then for the 1, we play a C major 7th, which is basically substituting that C major for an E minor, right? So F over D, then this G7 chord, and then E minor over C. That's a simple substitution that we can do for the 2-5-1 progression. But let's try to get a little bit more complicated than that, or a little bit more advanced. Something that I like to do is fill up my chords. So instead of just playing a single note on the bass, let's add in the rest of the chords. So a D minor, and let's add to that F, let's add this major 7th. All right, so here we have a D minor 9th. Then for the G chord, let's play the root, the 5th, and the dominant 7th. And then for the right hand, all I did was add that E, which is the 6th of a G major chord. All right, so G 9th, 13th. And then for the 1, instead of just playing what we learned just now, let's make it a bit more advanced. Let's stretch our left hand and play the 1st, the 5th, and the 10th. And our right hand, let's play the 6th, the 7th, the 9th, the 3rd, or the 10th, and the 5th. See, so it sounds a little bit more jazzy. All right. Now, if you want to make it a little bit less strenuous on the hands, let's do something like this. We're back to that D minor 7th, but for the G chord, let's play this chord. G minor 7th, so G and F. Then we play B, E, and A, which is the 5. And then for the 1, we play again C, G, and E, 1st, or root, 5th, and 10th, and then 6, 9, and the 5th. And that makes a C6-9 chord. And this chord is a perfect substitution for those C major chords. Now, we can also play around with the chords that we do it on our right hand. Instead of just playing a F to a G to a C or a D to a G to a C, let's play around with the chromatic scale. So instead of going to that G, let's start on the F, then let's go down chromatically to a E major, and then we end off on that C major 7th. All right, so D minor 7th. Here again I'm doing an E major, but my left hand stays static on that 5, so G, and I like to include that dominant 7th. It gives it more of a it solidifies that jazzy type sound. And then we end on that C major 7th sound. If we add that octave to that E major, we can end it like this, you see? Now let's try to learn this chord right here that I just did. In this case, what I'm doing is switching up that theory of going down chromatically with my right hand. Let's go down chromatically with our left hand, but some of the chords are going to change. So we play that 2 like this. As you can see, I'm playing F and G with my thumb. Then we go down chromatically to a C sharp, right? And our right hand only moves the C and the E down to a B and the E flat. And then we end on this chord. And something I like about this chord is that it's basically a combination of a G major and the E and the C major. And that gives it that sound, you see? So 2, 5, 1. And again, you can simply go back to that G instead of doing C sharp, and it still works out. You see? Now, a small variation to the same chord progression would be something like this. Here what I did was basically play a different alteration to that 5 chord. So 2 minor, then this G7 with a flat 9th and a flat 5th. And then we end on that C major 9th. And a small quick tip on what an altered chord is. Let's focus on that G, right? And let's say we have a G. We include the minor 7th and the major 3rd. So we have a G 7th. Now we have the freedom of adding either a flat or a sharp 5 or 9th. All right, so either the 5th or the 9th can be sharp or flat. So let's say we have the 9th, which is A. We can either flat it and we have this type of sound, or we can sharpen it. And instead of doing it here, since we have this B, let's try to make it up here so that it sounds a little bit less clashy. You see? And if we add the rest of the notes, if we double up on that minor 7th, we can fill it up a bit more. We can even include now a 5th. We can do a sharp 5th like this. So the 5th is D. We can either sharpen it or flat it. You see? These are all substitutions for that dominant 5 chord. You see? Now this chord that I just did, I substituted that 2 for something completely different. Instead of playing the 2, I use the tritone, which is A flat, and I formed the chord out of that tritone, and this sort of delves into that tritone substitution type of theory, but it tends to work out, right? Now let's say we substitute that 5 as well for its tritone, which is a C sharp. Let's see what happens. So instead of doing a 2, 5, 1, we do the tritones of a 2 and the 5. So you see, it still tends to work out. So a flat major 9th, C sharp major 7th, 13th, and a 1 chord, basically a C major 9, 13th. Again, I'm adding different extensions to these different types of chords, but at the end it still gives us that 2-5-1 type of sound. Now I'm just playing around with the different types of possibilities that I can do. Alright, so that's the lesson for today. If you have any questions, please leave it down in the comment section. And if you're new to the channel, remember to subscribe to keep receiving these types of lessons. Sometimes I do different songs with jazzier type chords, only so that you can try to expand that musical vocabulary and try to apply these concepts into the songs that you already know. Alright, thank you.